This is from this book I've been working on for a while. And the book is about recovering from trauma and learning how to eat. 10 years ago, I was diagnosed with 4 food allergies, and it sucked. I didn't handle it very well. And then in 2009, I was assaulted by a stranger in the subway, and that's what you need to know. I'm reading 3 parts. We identify with the foods we eat. They become a part of us. They dictate where we go, how we live, and who we spend our time with. The way we eat affects how we see ourselves and the kind of people we interact with. And when you change what and how you eat, you're changing how you interact with the world. There are people who are pizza and beer people, or pad thai people, or sushi people, or bagels and cream cheese people, or salad people, and they all live very different lives. They go to different places. They dress in specific and different ways. And if you relate to yourself as, for instance, a pizza and beer person, but can no longer eat the pizza or drink the beer due to a medical diagnosis, or just like some farty, bloaty feeling you have in your gut, it's easy to feel betrayed by the food that you've loved for so long. Because pizza is more than just pizza. Pizza is pizza parlors and the smell of melting cheese wafting over you when you go to pick up your pie, and watching them do that spinning, throwy thing with the dough up in the air as you wait in line. It's a shared experience. You order pizza with friends. It's the reward you get after you help your buddy move for the 5th time, even though you swore that the 4th time would be the last time. And if you've been eating pizza for much of your life, you most likely have an entire ritual built around your love of it. Picking it up with the heat and grease emanating from the box as it threatens to stain the seats of your car. Getting home, grabbing napkins, getting your beverage out of the fridge, and then settling in and carefully selecting your first slice. The ritual of the anticipation makes that first bite so delicious. One Lucky Duck is a fantastic raw takeout place in Manhattan that I used to go to in order to get their cashew-based ice cream, BA, before the assault, when I was still living in New York. It's a cute, wildly overpriced place that makes going raw seem both like a really good idea and also overwhelmingly complicated. They do things with nuts that I can't even talk about. It's true. So I was sitting there, waiting for my stupid, expensive, really crazy, delicious ice cream, chatting up an attractive man who turned out to be a raw chef. The conversation took a turn towards the proselytizing when he started telling me I should go raw, how amazing it is, how great I'll feel once I do it, my skin will look fabulous, I'll get that glow and live forever. He was really cute, so I was tempted to lie to him and tell him I totally would. But instead I blurted out, I can't. I'd have to make all new friends. Going raw wouldn't just be eating lots of salad. Salad is delicious, that wouldn't be a problem. But eating raw is a way of life and an identity. If I had been serious about it, I would have had to buy a dehydrator, start making meals days in advance, only going to restaurants that serve raw food and surrounding myself with like-minded people. Otherwise, it just would never happen. Which meant that I would have had to make all new friends. I would have had to break up with my college boyfriend, who was super sweet and not nice and not right for me at all, but who wants to break up with someone they love for raw vegetables and dehydrated nuts. At the time, he was trying on just like a little bit of bro, going to Irish pubs, drinking a bit too much, eating bacon, egg, and cheese sandwiches late into the night. He's from Wisconsin. He eats the appropriate amount of cheese for a person from Wisconsin. I knew then, without fully understanding, that food is culture and community. It's really hard to be the raw girl in the Irish pub. It's hard enough being myself in an Irish pub, and I can eat potatoes. If I wanted to be a raw foodist, I wouldn't just be changing my diet, I'd be changing my entire life. And that's just another thing to consider. That's why dietary shift can be so complicated. And it's worthwhile to ask yourself, is my health worth changing my entire life and maybe identity for? Because just one seemingly simple small dietary change, like going dairy-free, which is just one of the 4 of my food allergies, by the way, can bring up a lot of questions like, how do I hang out with my friends? How do I relax? Where do I eat? What do I eat? What kind of person am I now, and how do I comfort myself? Part 2. My dad makes these whole wheat blueberry pancakes for Sunday brunches and the most perfect apple crisp for desserts in the fall. When it was just the two of us at home, we used to make grilled cheese sandwiches and french fries we fried up in a wok. As a family, we made pounded chicken, which is this really high-maintenance dish that's like chicken breast sliced thin and then pounded, literally, to make it tender, and then breaded and fried in copious amounts of olive oil. We made homemade sauce and meatballs for pasta nights and pesto from basil my dad grew in the backyard garden. My sister baked chocolate chip cookies, and we ate them as they cooled, so soft and gooey. For the holidays, my dad and I made caramels to give as gifts to friends and neighbors. These are our family rituals. Every family has a different way of being together. In mine, togetherness means making food, eating it, and then dancing in the kitchen as we clean up together. So when I was diagnosed with food allergies and could no longer eat any of those foods, I lost both my childhood comfort foods and a way to be with my family, in particular my dad, at once. And I haven't figured out a way to get either of those back. The things that used to bring me close to him have become sources of stress. From a distance, they still remind me of comfort. I can picture the scene in the kitchen, music blaring, chopping, dancing, but up close there's flour and butter and cheese everywhere, and flour is airborne, which makes it difficult for me to breathe, and I can never relax. I am always on alert, watching where everyone puts their spoons, watching for spills and for smears and for crumbs. I miss those moments with my dad, so I've tried on my own to find new comfort foods that remind me of home, and I'm super dedicated. At one point, I made and ate pancakes for 3 months, just straight. I have baked countless apple crisps. I have breaded chicken in almond flour and fried it, making my own version of pounded chicken. I've made myself batch after batch of chocolate chip cookies, and they have all been delicious. But it's not the same, and it's not the same because my big sister isn't putting together the dough with me in the kitchen, and my dad isn't blasting classical music as he mixes the batter for pancakes on a Sunday morning. We aren't baking together and dancing to Bruce Springsteen while we all clean up the kitchen. So while it has felt empowering and very tasty to be able to imagine what I want and then make it for myself, that in and of itself hasn't made meal times with my family any easier. My ability to make my own pancakes doesn't mean that I all of a sudden know where I stand in the family system. I'm able to eat pancakes, which is a huge victory, but I'm still doing it alone. Those foods and the rituals surrounding them, the pancakes, the grilled cheese, the french fries, the chocolate chip cookies, they're all foods that mean comfort to me. But comfort foods only begin to signify comfort when they symbolize time together with the people I love. Smelling that apple crisp and blueberry pancakes meant that my whole family was together. Grilled cheese sandwiches and fries meant that it was just me and my dad for dinner that night. So while the food often felt like the main event, it really wasn't. It was the excuse for the main event. It was the catalyst for the main event. It's taken me a long time to get here. I've had to go through the anger and the feelings of loss, of being left out at a party that I was once invited to. But I'm able more and more to focus on the being together part and focus less and less on the grilled cheese sandwich. Think about your family rituals. Think about the ways you can be included in them even now. And if you can't be included, start a new one and build new ways to connect with the people you love. Don't let 10 years go by with you on the outside looking in. After doing the hard work, learning about yourself and what your limits are, respecting and accepting those limits can be challenging to people who see any form of self-acceptance as a form of giving up, and they're not alone. There is a demand in our culture for constant self-improvement. Limits are things we're not supposed to accept, rather they are things we're supposed to blast past as we are constantly on our way to becoming our best selves. Woo! It's real life, man. And if you see yourself as a work in progress, if you tell yourself that you'll be happy when you lose another whatever pounds, I don't care, or if you insert here a milestone, then perhaps this is you too. It's not just me. This can be both good and bad to those of us who see our limits as not things to accept, but as things to exceed and discover and exceed. We do have a sense that anything is possible, and that's pretty amazing. But the trap of it is that this endless need to be better than we are can turn into yet another way to negate who we are and where we are, and confirming that we're just not good enough yet. And that's why deciding that you are important and whole as you are, right fucking now, is so countercultural. There's precious little support for it. The need to be always improving has manifested itself for me in one major way. It's made it difficult for me to be kind to myself. The idea of taking care of myself in my mind has somehow gotten so closely tied to self-indulgence and laziness. So if I'm having a hard time and I'm feeling badly, my first instinct is to punish myself, which is not helpful at all, as opposed to be kind to myself, which is what would actually be helpful. I didn't realize this was my pattern until I was learning how to take care of myself after I was attacked. At that point, the best way for me to consistently avoid panic attacks was to sit alone on the couch listening to Harry Potter on CD as I looked out the window and watched the trees dance in the wind. In order to cope with trauma, initially the world you live in shrinks dramatically, and mine shrank to the size of that couch. But slowly, the world got bigger. The size of the room, and then the house, and then the block. And I was able to go places with someone, and then eventually I was able to go on my own. I could play Frisbee. I could meet new people. I could close my eyes. I don't know what that says. I don't have good handwriting, apparently. Add those things together, and soon I was doing all of these totally normal people things without having panic attacks, and I could almost pass for a non-traumatized person, which was huge. I could almost stop explaining myself as someone who was assaulted and is now dealing with this internal world of terror and having to tell people, and that's why I burst into tears when you casually touched me. I was almost out of these thorny, dark woods. But it was at this point that my progress became more subtle. And as I could do more, I started to run up against all the things I still couldn't do. Small things would surprise me by being really hard. For instance, I still can't watch shows and movies that rely on trauma as a plot device. It sounds like a stupid thing, but if you want to watch television, it's actually really hard to avoid. If the plot revolves around someone murdering and stalking and killing or raping, I can't watch it anymore. And I've been watching these kinds of shows and movies for like Law and Order, SVU, or Grey's Anatomy, or really anything that Shonda Rhimes makes. My whole television viewing life, I've been watching these things, but now I can't watch their make-believe traumas without reliving my own very real one. My boyfriend at the time was impatient with the slowing of my progress. He wanted to watch violent movies, and he wanted to watch them with me. He wanted me to always be, in measurable ways, improving. He wanted me to not be defined by the assault and be able to do all the things that I used to be able to do. He wanted my life to go back to where it had been, as if this had never happened.
Hey, how you doing? Still
How you doing?
I'm doing good, thanks. These are all really good things to want. And I was worried that maybe I was settling for a life I didn't need to settle for. So I pushed myself, and it went really poorly. I began to have more panic attacks. I began to despair that I would ever get to be a normal person again. Maybe it would have been a sign of progress if I could have watched The Terminator without dissolving into racking sobs. It's a really scary movie. Maybe it would be, but trying was only hurting myself, and it's an optional hurt. I don't need to watch violent films in order to be myself. Continually aiming for progress became punitive, and just another way to ignore reality. I'm not the same person that I was before I was assaulted. I can't possibly be. My entire life is different. I live in a different state, this one. I'm doing different things. I'm making different choices. I have different friends, and I can either accept that or I can fight it. These are my blessings. I'm off the couch and I'm into the world. I can go for a walk alone. I can sleep with my back to the door. I can be touched by my friends and family. I can meet new people. And I can dance in a crowd. Thanks.